how, I mean, we're at Disney and Charles always talks about how it's so funny when you're at Disney, people sometimes don't look happy.
It's like, what are y'all angry about? I mean, this is a great place to be. People, they might be hot, though. I think they might be hot. They're not used to that Florida heat.
Yeah, but in this situation, it was definitely like palpable, kind of that tension that they were having, even without seeing the words. And so, again, something that even the baby could pick up on.
Welcome back to another episode of the Parenting Potential Podcast. My name is Charles.
And I'm Monet.
And it is my turn to come up with a topic to discuss.
All right, let's hear it.
So we're going to title this Monkey See, Monkey Do.
Okay.
Monkey See, Monkey Do. So I'll start off with the story. So 2 weekends ago, you were on a 28-hour shift, and I took the girls to Disney.
Yeah.
And I was noticing that Anaya was doing raspberries. And I was trying to figure out, like, 'cause she's never done that before. But she's spitting. I'm like, why are you spitting? Like, what? Like, stop that. It was cute, but it was also like just spit in my face, on my clothes. I'm like, what are you doing? And it wasn't until a day or two later that our nanny basically said, oh, I'm teaching Leilani raspberries. And I see Leilani doing it. And so Anaya learned it from watching Leilani doing this. And so she was trying it out. So it made me think about a quote that I heard someone say years ago, is that kids learn by watching.
Mm-hmm.
Kids learn by watching, and I think we're so bent on teaching them by sitting them down and showing them and talking them through it. But in many ways, they're picking up on what we're doing. Body language, tone of voice, everything, right? Naya knows when we kind of say, don't do that, and maybe we might yell or say in a stern voice, she starts to cry.
Yeah.
Right. So, full disclosure, without getting into the details, but, you know, I guess about a couple of months ago, had a really bad rift with a couple of family members that were very, very close to me. Rift happened. Things were said. We stopped talking, cut contact. And I'll admit that part of it was my ego and not admitting my fault. Like there was the reasoning for feeling a way was, you know, valid on both sides. It's just the expression of how the sides felt was maybe not the best approach, right? So, not getting into details. And so, one day, I was just thinking, what would my daughters think when they ask me why I don't have relationships with said family members? What would I say? And when I thought about what I would say, I felt very embarrassed. I felt that it wouldn't be a good example of how you handle conflict. Matter of fact, it was just very immature. And I would create a cycle that would penetrate generations.
Yeah.
And so I decided to put my ego aside and admit fault, still expressing that I was still hurt by whatever situation, but that my approach wasn't the best. Validate my feelings we'll talk about that another time, right? To set family members, set family members. But my approach wasn't the best, and that cutting people off, quote unquote, is just very immature. Mm-hmm. So monkey see, monkey do, and I say that because I don't want our flaws that we don't keep in check to be something our girls pick up on and imitate.
Right.
Thoughts?
Yeah, well, one thing that came up that I was thinking as you were saying that is, what they see. I think it's the power of like the actions is really what speaks all of the words. And oftentimes I think you're not even aware of what they're really seeing. Mm-hmm. And you said that, what if your girls asked you like why you didn't have a relationship with those people? And it goes even more than whether or not they'd ask you, because they could not ask you and still very much notice and learn a lot from that and perpetuate that. Or they can ask you and you can explain it, and you think the way you explained it might have set off, okay, they got a certain message. But what might even trump what you tell them is them actually noticing or seeing things outside of the words. And what it makes me think of is like every little thing that we do, they're picking up on, especially at this stage of their life where we really can't explain things with our words so much to them because they're not understanding things from our words to that degree. So what they are going to pick on is those non-verbal things. They're picking up on like our demeanor. And we have talked about so much, in our nanny searches we've had throughout the years. It feels like decades at this point. But as we've gone through like and picking caregivers for our children, we have even like let that message be known and come across to prospective nannies like, hey, we're very like sensitive to the vibes of the people we have watch our girls, and we know that the kids are like sponges and they'll pick up on like your energy towards them. And so we love and value like that whole energy piece that someone brings to the table. And we know they're picking up on those things. And something as simple as, a nanny coming and maybe just seeming a little bored while she's doing something with the girls. She might think, oh, it's fine because the things she's saying or different tasks she's checking off the box that she's doing. But what are the girls seeing? And so for us, I think it's so important to be mindful of they're seeing things that we can't even imagine that they're seeing and picking up on. Our energy when we come home from work, when we have a bad day. Or if we have, like you said, sometimes Anaya will get a little angry, or not angry, but like cry or get upset when you and I might raise our voice or like say something kind of in a stern way towards her. So like, even when we're not being stern with each other, like if we're far away from each other and we kind of yell out the other person's name so that they'll hear us. Like, I think there's been times where Anaya has seemed kind of startled by that.
Yeah.
And like, that's even something they pick up on. I mean, there's so many things. If your house sometimes is in disarray, like your children might learn kind of to exist in a chaos. And they're picking up on that. And I think the list goes on. And so it's not like you have to be these cookie cutter perfect people, but it's just being mindful and, again, trying to be intentional, like we always touch on, about everything that you can really think of.
Yeah.
And how it can send a message to your children for the good or the bad or the indifferent.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good summary, actually. I think that what I'd want listeners to be able to do is to think about think about what you feel one of your flaws are that's apparent, right? It might be ego, it might be disorganized, it might be what's the word?
Lack of self-care.
Self-care. Another word. You gotta help me out with this.
Anger.
Anger, that's a good one. But it's almost like when you put things off.
Procrastination.
Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm. Procrastination. This all those mannerisms. I don't think it's mannerism, but all those habits that you don't want your kids to have. Mm-hmm. And if you have them, let's just decide that you will end that curse right there. Like, don't even try to make excuses. Just change, because, and I know there's lots of things I have to work on too, outside of just that whole ego and cutting people off when I feel like I don't have a good relationship, or if you offended me because I'm sensitive. You got to stop. So identify those flaws, those negative habits, and focus on the positive habits that you want them to pick up on.
Yeah. And like we've touched on in previous episodes, the theme of when you strive to kind of be your best self, you're ultimately going to make your children be their best. And when you try to reach for your greater potential, it allows your children to also. Like, I think nothing can speak more true than if you truly make yourself be your best self that you can be, and really try to work on those things. Like, what better motivation than for the sake of your children to work on these things that you probably know you always needed to work on, and realizing that, you know, what you're doing. And yes, maybe if your children are young, they wouldn't really know the effects of certain choices you're making, like being a procrastinator. But now is that time to work on that stuff. And there will be a time your child learns from that. You're going to move different and do things different and impart different wisdoms on your child based on kind of how you are. And so if you have overcome that flaw or that characteristic, then you're ultimately going to be able to impart that on your child too. So really, if nothing else is going to motivate you, if it's not for an intrinsic reason for your own good, it's really for the sake of your kids.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I was thinking about that family we saw at Epcot. Now, we're not judging anyone's family, right? But what we saw was probably, it was scarring. So we saw this couple, married couple, right? And I guess it was probably the husband's family, mom and dad.
Seems like it.
And we're sitting down, eating our pretzel in Germany, just enjoying the weather with our girls. And then we overhear this guy berating his wife in front of his parents and his son.
Yeah, little baby.
I'll repeat that. Husband berating his wife in front of his son.
Yeah.
And again, this woman was just
seeming kind of beat down from it.
Yeah, like this obviously wasn't the first time, but just thinking about, like, what are you teaching your son, or how are you teaching your son to treat women if you're going to sit there and berate her in the middle of this packed area in front of his grandparents? It just wasn't a good look. And what did I say? I said that guy, he's that way most likely because his parents allowed him to be that way. And his parents were pretty upset, but his mom was kind of quiet, and his dad was more upset. But you started to think, well, how did this guy become this tyrant? I think it started when he was younger.
Yeah, and who knows, like, where he saw or what he saw and might have picked up on to become this way. And I think, again, because their child was like a baby, it's easy to think, oh, you can say all these things. I would bet that sometimes the couple would have maybe those same type of heated arguments, and maybe even more so in the comfort of their home, with the child around who's able to hear it and pick up on it. And yeah, that child is not understanding the words that are said. But I mean, we could catch on to the body language, I think, even before we were really hearing the words of their conversation. I think one thing that struck me was their body language and just kind of how, I mean, we're at Disney and Charles always talks about how it's so funny when you're at Disney, people sometimes don't look happy.
It's like, what are y'all angry about? I mean, this is a great place to be. People, they might be hot, though. I think they might be hot. They're not used to that Florida heat.
Yeah, but in this situation, it was definitely like palpable, kind of that tension that they were having, even without seeing the words. And so, again, something that even the baby could pick up on. Raising a voice or this back and forth exchange that just feels hostile. There's energies that you exude in what you do. And, you know, because there is that type of relationship or that type of conflict that is happening with the parents, who knows what other things come from that the child is also able to pick up on, or what things they're doing and not doing. So if you as a parent to your child have a lot of love and respect and connection with each other, and so you're prioritizing time together and, you know, date nights and all those things are important. And that's why I think people say, you know, pour into your relationship first and foremost, and you'll be able to pour into even your kids and your family unit more. It's just like, again, if you prioritize being your best self, you can be a better parent and be better for your child and allow them to be better too. And it's that, you know, it's all starts somewhere. And so realize and don't take for granted that everything leads to what your child, I mean, your child is a sponge. They pick things up from you in the household. They pick things up from the school that you send them to and the kids there at that school. And there's a lot of factors you can't control, but realize, yeah, monkey see, monkey do. And who your children are around and what they see around them will definitely impact who they become.
Yeah, no, I think what I would want to just leave them with is an exercise. So if you have a parenting partner, asking that person what, and it gets pretty deep, what you think is a flaw that your kids could pick up on, that you should work on. There's lots of things I know I need to work on without even asking you, right? But there's some things maybe that I don't know, and I think it's important. And we used to call it telling someone about themselves in an honest and loving way, of course. But you know, it's like the equivalent of if you had a camera in your house that recorded you on a given day, and you got to rewatch that and see how you actually are, right? And so we all have flaws. We all make mistakes. We all have these habits or tendencies that could really be devastating in the long run, directly and indirectly, to our kids and our kids' kids. And so just let it stop with you.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see sometimes what your child will pick up on that you'd have no idea. It almost like shines a mirror on yourself in ways that you wouldn't know. The funniest thing is Leilani, we notice sometimes she'll like do this thing where she'll open her mouth up really wide when she does that with people sometimes in general, but a lot of times I was noticing she would do it when she sees me from across the room, like just mouth open wide, and like she kind of tips her head down. And my mom and sister the other day were like, oh my gosh, why is she doing that with you? And we came to find that it's because every time I'm seeing her, I kind of do that. I open my mouth wide, like, and look very expressive. And so she's like imitating that. And it's like, oh my God, yeah, I do that. And so if there is something that your child does, and you might be able to more easily recognize it in them than in yourself. Like Charles said, if a camera was showing you how you act in the day. So if your child is throwing a tantrum, or if they're not able to regulate their emotions in certain situations, if they are being greedy, or they don't share their toys with their sibling, like, think about what they are seeing, and if you can resonate with that, and maybe it shows you something you're doing that you do want to change.
No, I like it. I like that.
That's another homework assignment too.
I know, and we got to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate you for listening. Again, we love having these conversations because it shines light on how we can be better.
Yeah.
People, like we're on a journey. We're on a journey, and we're not experts, but we want to be experts in our experiences, which allows for us to learn and just be as good to be the best that we can be for our children. Because they're the future. I know that sounds cliche, but literally, I believe these girls are going to be the next leaders of the world, right? So
yeah,
it's important that we have a big job to cultivate these individuals and develop them to be good human beings. So we appreciate you coming along on this journey. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. Go back and watch the other episodes. If you aren't new to this, you need to at least get 10 of your friends to subscribe, to listen, to comment, to share. Give us a call.
Oh yeah.
Send us an email. Text us. We are here. But we love to have the conversation. We love to get ideas of topics to talk about, because again, this is therapeutic for us as well. So we appreciate you. We love you.
Yeah, and I love this topic. Thank you, Charles.
No problem. Monkey see, monkey do. Enjoy the rest of your morning, your evening, your day, whatever time of day it is. Enjoy it. Until next time, peace.
Love ya.